Hello, you are most welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Real Impartation Moment on Tuesday Night Anatomy with Daniel Oakman. Today's section, I want to quickly run with you some neurovascular structures that pass through the substance of the parotid gland, so that in case of parotid gland, surgery, for instance, parotidectomy, then care must be taken so that we don't cause injury to these important, neurovascular structures. Yes, of course, there will be some certain things which may be related to the submandibular gland, because of course some of these nerves, when they get injured, they can also get injured during what we call submandibular gland surgery. So I also touch on that briefly. And so, without much ado, let's set the ball rolling. So there we are. One important thing that we have to start with is the nerves. So the nerves which are related to what we call this parotid gland, so that they can get injured. There's the parotid gland that you find over here, which is of course found, anterior, to what we call the ear, in front of the ear and below the ear. So that is what we find over here. One important thing that we see is that, yes, we have the facial nerve. I've not really looked at the facial nerve with you, but pretty soon we'll be looking at that one. But of course, we know that it gives an external genu, which of course will give that kind of greater protrusial nerve, no problem. Yes, it also gives what we call a quarter tympanic branch. Now, beyond the quarter tympanic branch, there will be another nerve, coming from that facial nerve. And what we see that nerve will run through what we call the, stylomastoid, foramen, and will come out this way. So you can see there's the main trunk of the facial nerve, which has run through, moved away from the cranial cavity, to external aspect. And once it comes over here through the stylomastoid foramen, it gives 5 branches, to give that kind of motor supply to muscles of facial expression. And you can see this, nerve over here, this nerve is running all the way to the temporal region, and that's why we call this nerve, this temporal branch, this is the temporal branch. Then apart from that, we also have what we call the zygomatic branch, there will be some other branches as well, so zygomatic branches. Then of course we also have what we call the buccal branch, which of course goes to the cheek area. Then apart from that, one important nerve which also has an important relation, which I want to mention, is this nerve which we call the marginal mandibular branch of the facial nerve. Not mandibular nerve, there's marginal mandibular branch of facial nerve. Remember that mandibular nerve is actually the 3rd division of the trigeminal nerve, a completely different nerve on its own. But this time around, we are looking at the marginal mandibular branch of the facial nerve, and it runs, along what we call the, from the ramus of the mandible, it runs along what we call the body of the mandible, around the base. My friend, if this nerve gets injured, over here, when we are want to make incision and enter what we call the submandibular region, to perform submandibular gland surgery, this nerve can get injured, And that is why during submandibular gland surgery, what happens is that the incision is made about 2 centimeters below the base of this mandible, the body of the mandible over here, so that we avoid, causing injury to the marginal mandibular branch of the facial nerve. Not only that, there's also one nerve which will go and supply, of course, the platysma, one of the panniculus canosus muscle that we have in the neck region, where it contracts, causes that wrinkling in the neck region. This is the cervical branch of the facial nerve. My friends, this cervical branch of the facial nerve can also get injured during what we call the submandibular gland surgery, because the incision that will be made over here, yes, it can cause injury to that one. So these are the things, these are the nerves that you should know which can get injured during what we call the parotid gland surgery. There are 5 nerves which will be produced, or which will branch out from the main facial nerve, which run from the cranial cavity, through what we call the stylomastoid foramen, and they are what we call a temporal branch, getting the temporal region. We have the zygomatic branch, yes, of course, going to the zygomatic area, supply, of course, zygomaticus muscles, major and minor, yes. Then you have what we call the buccal, branch, going to, of course, supply mainly the vaccinator muscle. We have what we call the marginal mandibular nerve, yes, you can see where it is going to supply these kind of muscles of facial expression which are below, the lower lip. Talk about the mentalis, talk about depressor anguli oris, and what have you. And then, of course, you also have what we call the cervical branch of the facial nerve. So these are the nerves which are liable to injury when we want to perform what we call parotidectomy. So care must be taken, okay, so that we don't cause injury to these guys. Yes, I mean, I mentioned that if we are performing submandibular gland surgery, although we are looking at the parotid gland, because I told you that there are some true nerves which during the incision, okay, through the skin, if you want to enter the submandibular gland region, okay, so that I perform that surgery, and I mentioned those two. I said one of them is the marginal mandibular branch of the facial nerve, alongside, of course, the cervical branch of the facial nerve. But my friends, if I enter the submandibular gland region, okay, then I want to perform that surgery, there are two more other nerves which are also liable to injury, okay, and one of them is over here. That nerve is the lingual nerve. Remember that the lingual nerve is actually coming from the posterior division of what we call the it's coming out from the posterior division of what do you call them, mandibular nerve. Okay, we look at that one later. Okay, so that's the lingual nerve. It is not coming from the facial nerve. No, lingual nerve is a different, completely different nerve on its own. It's a branch of the mandibular nerve, where it's actually coming from the trigeminal nerve. Okay, that's one thing you should know. That is above the gland. Okay, you can see the indicated here that this is the deep part of what you call the submandibular gland. So the nerve which is running above the deep part of the submandibular gland, which can get injured, okay, once you are performing, okay, the submandibular gland surgery, is this lingual nerve. But I'll tell you one important thing about this lingual nerve only. Okay, then the next one is that below the lingual nerve, okay, there's another, below the submandibular gland, okay, there will be another nerve, and that is the 12th cranial nerve. Okay, that is the hypoglossal nerve. Now my friends, remember that this hypoglossal nerve, what it does is that it gives motor supply. So as you can see over here, let me show you over here. Okay, this nerve over here, which is running at this lower level, okay, this is the hypoglossal nerve. The hypoglossal nerve does nothing, but it gives motor supply to both the intrinsic and extrinsic muscles of the tongue. So you can see, those of you who have not watched the extrinsic muscles of the tongue that I've done already, yes, you'll be able to understand this one. Get that video link and watch it. Okay, so it means this is what we call the hypoglossal nerve, giving motor supply to what we call the muscles, extrinsic muscles of the tongue, alongside the intrinsic muscles of the tongue. Now my friends, if that happens, if there's an injury, okay, to this hypoglossal nerve, then what is going to happen is that there's going to be what we call that kind of muscle movement may be lost. Okay, so the muscles, there could be that kind of deviation of the tongue to one side. Okay, so you don't be able to move the muscles, because one thing I told you is that the intrinsic muscles of the tongue, what they do is that they help change the shape of the tongue, while of course the extrinsic muscles of the tongue, they help change the position of the tongue. Okay, so that's one thing that you should know. But my friends, one important thing which I'm interested in is of course this lingual nerve. Remember that lingual nerve, what it does is that it gives sensory supply to the floor of the mouth, okay, alongside giving general sensation to what we call the anterior two tiers of the tongue. Okay, so it means that whenever this lingual nerve gets injured, then there is going to be loss of sensation to the floor of the mouth, alongside loss of general sensation to, of course, the anterior two tiers of the tongue. Okay, that's an important thing I want you to know. But there's a catch. Now my friends, the catch here is that if you look at this nerve, which we are calling it the lingual nerve, which is coming from the mandibular nerve, okay, what I see is that this lingual nerve, it doesn't move alone. It runs with this nerve, which we call the chorda tympani branch of the facial nerve. Now I told you that the facial nerve, after the external genuine, which gives the greater pituitary nerve, yes, it goes and gives what we call the chorda tympani branch. Now one unique thing that we know about chorda tympani branch, okay, is that yes, we talk about giving what we call taste sensation to, of course, the anterior two tiers of the tongue. Yes, that's very true, but there's another thing that you have to know. So it means that what I'm trying to say is that if there's an injury, look at where my cursor is, if there's an injury to the lingual nerve over here, then it means that not only lingual nerve surface, in other words, not only general sensation to the floor of the mouth and anterior two tiers of the tongue will be lost, but also there will be loss of taste to the anterior two tiers of the tongue. Why? Because this nerve, which we call the chorda tympani branch of the facial nerve, through this lingual nerve, okay, we'll get to what we call the anterior tiers of the tongue to give it that kind of taste sensation. But it is not only taste sensation that this chorda tympani branch of the facial nerve, supplies. Because one unique thing that I want to show you in this next slide that you find over here is that not only that, but it also gives secretomotor fibers to what we call the submandibular gland and of course the sublingual gland. what it tells you is that if there's injury, okay, to this lingual nerve, and for that matter quarter tympanic branch, okay, or facial nerve surface, then it means that there's going to be reduction in secretion of saliva, okay, coming from, of course, the submandibular gland and, of course, the sublingual gland. Okay, so if we look at briefly this secretomotor pathway, okay, this is what we are saying. Okay, this from the trigeminal nerve, of course, you know that there will be that kind of 3 divisions, okay, the ophthalmic, you know, the maxillary, and of course the mandibular. Now what I'm interested in is that the mandibular gives this branch which you call the lingual nerve, okay, but I told you that over here we have facial nerve. The facial nerve, okay, gives a bend. That's the external genu of the facial nerve. And then of course from that external genu of the facial nerve we have the greater petrosal nerve, okay, going, that's a different story altogether. We'll talk about that one later. But beyond that, you have another nerve which you call the quarter tympanic branch of the facial nerve. But my friends, this same quarter tympanic branch of the facial nerve, okay, it wants to reach what we call the anterior two-thirds of the tongue, okay, so that I give that taste sensation to it, okay, except of course that kind of circumvallate papillae, okay. So it means that this one will, before it gets there, it has to join what we call this, this lingual nerve. But my friends, this quarter tympanic branch, as you can see clearly over here, it is not only going to give taste sensation to the anterior two-thirds of the tongue, but it's also going to give that kind of secretomotor fibers to, of course, the submandibular and sublingual gland. Why? Because this quarter tympani, yes, relay in a ganglion over here, which you call it the submandibular ganglion, and then beyond that, there will be that kind of postganglionic fibers, okay, going to supply these kind of, through the same lingual nerve to supply submandibular gland and sublingual gland. It tells you that if there's an injury, okay, at this point over here to the lingual nerve, then it's not only lingual nerve surface, but also the quarter tympanic branch of the facial nerve. And that is why when there's injury to what we call the lingual nerve, then what will happen is that it will also lead to what we call reduction in secretion of saliva by the submandibular gland and of course the sublingual gland. Yeah, so moving away from the nerves, now one other thing that we have to know, which, you know, gets through what we call the substance of the parotid gland, okay, is what we call some of the branches of what we call the external carotid artery. So as you can see over here, now we said that yes, we are going to have the common carotid artery. Yes, then the common carotid artery will divide into what we call internal and of course external carotid artery. Now remember, the internal carotid artery has nothing to the external aspects of the body. It goes into the cranial cavity, so it's more internal. But it's rather the external carotid artery, which of course we will see the branches, okay, going through the substance of the parotid gland. And as you can see, so one of them itself is the external carotid artery. Then beyond that, it gives a branch to the posterior aspect, which we call the posterior auricular artery, okay, over here, as you can see, running through the substance of the parotid gland. Then it continues and it gives this branch which we call it the maxillary, artery. Okay, maxillary artery, one of the largest branches of this external carotid artery. Then beyond that, we're going to see the superficial temporal artery, going to the temporal area, superficial temporal artery. But one thing that we know is that yes, beyond, okay, before it gets out of this substance of parotid gland, the superficial temporal artery also gives a branch to run across, the face transversely, and that is why that artery is known as transverse facial artery. So these are the branches that we want to see running through the substance of the parotid gland, the arteries. Okay, so the vascular, in terms of arteries, we are talking about one of them is we can talk about the external carotid artery itself, the posterior auricular artery. Yes, we talk about the maxillary artery, we talk about superficial temporal artery, and of course the transverse facial artery. So in all, about 5, okay, of these, arteries, running through the substance of the parotid gland. That is why during parotid gland surgery, care must be taken so that we don't cause injury and severe bleeding, okay, to the area, okay, because these guys are liable to get injured. Now, lastly, the third important thing as far as the neurovascular structures running through the parotid gland, the substance of the parotid gland is concerned, okay, or are concerned, is the veins. Okay, we've seen the nerves, we've seen the arteries, and then the veins. Now remember, I will say that the veins are just like the arteries, okay? So if you know the arteries, you don't really know that of the veins. So if we start, now you see that we had a vein, okay, which you call it the superficial temporal vein, as we saw over there. And we said that this superficial temporal vein, yes, it will receive some kind of tributary from what you call the transverse facial vein, which is running, transverse across the face. But my friends, not only that one, I told you the largest branch, okay, coming from this external carotid artery being the maxillary artery. Yes, we also see what we call the maxillary vein. So similar architecture over here, presentation or organization over here. Then beyond that, we see that there will be another vein, my friends. This vein will not be external carotid vein. No, we don't have that one, but rather we will call it retromandibular vein. Retromandibular, yes, behind the mandible. Okay, so running behind the mandible, that's why we call it retromandibular vein. Then my friend, even the anterior and then the posterior divisions, okay, the anterior and posterior divisions of this retromandibular vein, yes, will be seen in the substance of the parotid gland. But my friends, one thing that we don't see running through the substance of parotid gland, yes, the posterior auricular vein, no. External jugular vein, no. Okay, so, and of course, talking about common facial vein, yes, they are all not running through what we call the substance of what we call the parotid gland. So in all, what have we seen in terms of the veins? Okay, we will see what we call the superficial temporal vein. We will see transverse facial vein running through it. We will see maxillary vein. Okay, we will see retromandibular vein alongside the anterior and posterior divisions of the retromandibular veins running through the substance of the parotid gland. So it means that these veins can also get injured, okay, during the parotid gland surgery. So that care must be taken so that we don't cause injury to these guys. Alright, I'm very grateful for your time this evening. I hope you find it helpful. Okay, share with friends, like the video if you enjoyed them. Have a good night, all of you, and may the good Lord richly bless you. Amen.